Hey up guys, it's Rory from In the Light and the Shadows. It's great to see you. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode, which is episode 8. And this is with Remi Anekwe, and he is going to be talking about money in tied with mental health. I'm excited about this one because we seem to just put money in the dark shadows of our mind, and it's just that awkward one. It's that elephant in the room. Even with our closest loved ones and friends, we don't want them to see our bank balances. We don't want to talk about some of the decisions we may or may not have made. But today, I've brought on Remi so we can go dark and deep and ultimately get you guys some advice and help. But just before I introduce Remi properly, I just want to say to all of you for looking at our videos on Enlighten the Shadows, for sharing them, for liking them, and even those people who have took the time to set up their own YouTube account and subscribe just for this channel alone and that purpose. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful. It just, to me, says that you get it and you understand that it's not about me personally, it's about the movement. And the more men's mental health awareness we can get out there, the more men we ultimately can save. And so, yeah, I just want to mix it up again this week. We shouldn't be more than an hour. I know I said that in the past. I said, oh, yeah, there'll be an hour and they can go an hour and a half, but really trying to keep them to an hour so I don't lose you guys and hook you in so that you're getting that information and it's there ready for you. So, yeah, my guest today, as I said, Remi Anekwe, he's got a background in banking. So he's been in the banking industry for many years. And he's transitioned into the finance world, and so he's like a specialist finance advisor. And so, yeah, I'm believing that he's going to bring it home to us today. No pressure, but Remi, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Rory. Evening, friend. Thank you for inviting me onto your show. Nice to be with you.
Yeah. So, Remi and I, we know each other. Do you want to share why we know each other, or go on, you go for it? How do we know each other?
Don't want to steal your thunder, but you're one of those crazy friends of mine. And we go to the same church together, but you are just one of those straight up guys who I really love for your honesty, your integrity, and what you see with Rory is what you get. So it was a real privilege and honor when you asked me to come on the program with you, mate. So that's how we know each other. We're friends through church.
Amazing. But as I say, the link is church. However, the skill set and the expertise is money oriented. So guys, I want you to just lean in. I want you to turn off any distractions right now on your phones and put things on mute. Tell people, right, I'm busy for an hour, and just chill out, get yourself a drink and just tune in, because we're going to talk about stuff, because you know what? We're in tough times. We're not going to ignore it. There's no doom and gloom here. On my show, it's about being proactive, not reactive, and it's about being real where we are. And ultimately, I hope this helps women too, because there's advice here for everyone. But the coronavirus has hit us, guys, and it's been a really tough few months or so, and we've really just united as a nation, and we've had all of the sacrifices made in many ways. And I think ultimately people have sadly lost their lives. But one of the biggest sacrifices for me, I feel, I don't know about you, Remi, is actually the financial cut that people have had to have. And, people have been naturally furloughed, but let's not get it twisted. When you're furloughed, you're being bailed out, and the money's come from somewhere, I personally believe, and taxpayer then has like the backlash of that. So, yeah, I just feel like the government's doing a really good job. They're not communicating panic and fear. I don't know what your thoughts are, Remi, right now with finances and families in the United Kingdom right now. How are your thoughts and feelings on that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Rory. In terms of the whole COVID situation, you're bang on right there. The government, I do agree with you, they're doing their best, and they're putting money out there into the system to try and furlough people and make sure that we get through these times as best as possible. So we take our hats off to them. Whoever's in government, it's not a political statement one way or the other. We're just acknowledging that whoever's in government, it's a tough job, it's a tough call. We've never been this kind of way before, as individuals, as families, as a nation. So it can't be easy. And the amount of money they're putting into the system to make sure that we get through this is phenomenal. but as they say to us, it's got to come home somewhere. So it's not free money. We wish it were. So it's gonna it's backing up somewhere, and we wait to see how the government wants to actually do that. But there is a price to be paid in the sense of having to pay back all that money because the nation itself has gone into debt
Yeah.
and trying to help us all out.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? We can focus our mindsets on the news, and we get really like caught up in it all. And I just feel like sometimes that can be quite unhealthy for us. So what we can do tonight and today or this morning, whatever time it is for our viewers, is really just take personal onus and responsibility. I don't know about you, Remi, but I'm just going to like go in with you some personal questions about finances and the things you kind of learned, because I always feel like in life, if we live it, we have experiences, right? And you know, we all have different experiences with money and stuff. So, and I've got my own, and you know, I may share some stuff potentially if it just goes that way. But yeah, I just wanted to ask you like about learning the importance of money, because I don't know, I just feel like at school, particularly for me, and it just doesn't speak for everyone, but I really believe at school, like they'll do a bit of maths and
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
but when I get frustrated right now because I feel like, why doesn't the system that society runs in really nurture and
yeah,
raise up children and young people to understand not
yeah,
currency, not the pound, but money, and how to really become successful and responsible with their money so that
yeah.
everyone can be prosperous. So I don't know if you could share with us any like nuggets of your younger days about who taught you how to maybe look after money, maybe some skills they taught you, just generally that importance of money. Is there anything you could share with us, for our viewers?
Well, I think I first of all want to say exactly what you said. You're slightly younger than I am, but to hear you saying the same thing that I was going to mention, in that when I was younger in school days, you know, they teach you about everything. As you say, they teach you about money, teach you about maths, teach you about science, teach you about biology, and that's what we call education. But in terms of the actual education, practical living, things like money, it was not taught in my days. And to date, even my son, whom you know quite well, still in his teens, they still don't have a subject which is titled money. And I find that really amazing, Rory. I really do, because that's one of the most important things in life. I'll use another example. Just like I'm married, we've got three beautiful children. And as we're getting into our marriage, I heard somebody was talking about that you go to the supermarket, you make a list of what you want so you know what you're going to get at the supermarket, but we go into marriage and you don't quite know. You've got no manual, nothing in terms of to tell you what to expect. And I say that simply to say along the lines of money as well. We go to education, we talk about everything else. And I'm sure Pythagoras is work. It's great to know that. Can't remember the last time I used Pythagoras to
Or pi? Was it 3.142 or whatever?
that
Like,
much. 3 or 2. I'm told it's to the 23 or 27 decimal places, but listen, it's fantastic knowledge. It really is.
yeah,
How
yeah.
it helped me when I go to the supermarket, how that's helped me when I go to the bank, I couldn't tell you. But in terms of actually somebody sitting us down, teaching us not just economics, but about money and the fundamental use of it, its importance, that is a crying shame. It really is. It is.
Did you have like your dad around or like a teacher? How did you just like kind of get that shrewdness about money or passion for money?
Well, that's the point I'm making, because it wasn't taught at school. You had to educate your own self. Although I
Got you.
would say my dad is a banker, so that's his background. So from that perspective, that's where I would have got my influence and inspiration from in terms of money. But the rest of it's got to be self-education. But a little bit like, well, some of us blokes, we just think that we know it all, don't we? And we go crashing on doing things. And so it doesn't come quite easy to say, let's sit down, let's be taught about this from others who know. And you just have this, well, I'm not sure if it's a guy thing, that we just think that we can handle it and we don't need to be taught. But most of mine has had to come through trial and error, self-educating and making the mistakes although my original inspiration and influence would have come from my dad.
Got you. Got you.
Yeah.
And so naturally, it's like the obvious of, right, get yourself a job, because you can get
Yeah.
yourself a job, that's your income. Everyone watching is like, well, duh, yeah, that's the obvious. But
Yeah.
this is the state and time we're in. Like, unemployment was at its record lowest in the last quarter of 2019. It was like 3.6% or something. And, you know, they're saying by the end of this year, it could get to like 11% and up to 15% as projections. But back to being specific with people, like, I personally, I don't know about you, Remi, I feel like it's a time to not necessarily rely on the system, but be entrepreneurial. Like, I don't know, analyze your gift set. What are your thoughts on that right now, as a time where?
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, you mentioned about, I mean, I think we've all got this typical mentality that, you know, you grow up, you go to school, and then the next thing is you get yourself a job, and out of that job, you make your income and you try to make a living. But, you know, especially in these times that we're in, I think we've got to be outside the box. And I know that's the kind of person that you are. So we've got to think outside the box, because the normal strategy and the normal way of doing it, come out from school, get yourself a good job and work your way up. With the pressures of life, with the cost of living as well, of life, you've got to get yourself some pretty damn good job there in order to make sure that you are meeting it. Children will come along. Back in my days when we went to university, the government paid for it back then. Now that's not no longer available. So there's a cost of education and all of that. So there's so much financial pressure on people in this day and age that just that normal way of how we were either taught or saw it done isn't quite making it. So we've got to be a bit more entrepreneurial and a bit more thinking outside the box, particularly in the current climate of COVID and furlough and people sort of being out of jobs. There was a time, mate, when you could come out of employment, get married, and then, you know, your wife, depending on whether she wanted to work or not, it's her decision. But back then, you know, the man's wage was enough to sort of look after him, look after his wife, look after his family. Hey, that's not the case here. Never has been the case here. I work, my wife works as well, and we work. You with me? I love it to be a situation where I could say to my wife, darling, put your feet up, don't need to work, got it all sorted. But it's not quite like that at all. That just shows you how society has changed, mate.
Yeah, it has, hasn't it? And I feel like it's the decision making as well with money. You know, if you're a sound mind, if your mental health is good, then you're gonna likely make better decisions. Whereas if you've got ill mental health, you're struggling, you're feeling a bit hopeless. As we are in these times, we're trying to quit people more. But like, I feel like, again, that's not been taught about, you know, taking a bit of time, weighing up your options, because it's like a click fast generation. Like, I'll be honest, I remember when I was a bit younger, in my early 20s, you know, my income wasn't great. I was trying to work and climb and hustle up the ladder, but then I had like these payments of things, and then the debt that I was facing. So then, you know, I was like, oh, I'll get a loan then. And it was like, right, bang. And I did it all online. I didn't have any, again, it's back to what you said earlier about men thinking they can do it all. I was like, yeah, I'll do it, and bang. And then within 10 minutes, it was all processed, and I got like a loan, thousands of pounds. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, there was no like supervision or a sense of care. It was just like, right, bang, right, you're all right. So, yeah, you're fine. And I wasn't. I was struggling, and then that loan was like making me struggle more. So yeah, I had to really dig myself out of all that. But yeah, it's just like those mistakes again. Like, you know, that could have finished me ultimately. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
we need to be fathered, like sons and daughters. We need to be fathered in this area, I feel like. And so yeah, that's why I wanted to bring you on, because like, as we go further into this chat, we're gonna equip people. But yeah, I don't know about you, but do you want to share with our viewers about something you may have learned with money, like the tougher side, or something that you had to do to then redirect and improve on to get like to a better path? Because I'm sure there's people watching that, and we'll get onto debt later and loans and credit cards and decisions with that. But yeah, is there anything personally that you can like kind of share with people? You go, oh yeah, I had this happen, this is what I did.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I've got a long list of those.
Oh, come on.
I'm not sure if there are many people who haven't got at least some issues that they can talk about. Before we go on, I'll tell you one thing I have learned in my years now. And you're talking about sort of going online, click generation, and it's there. And I suppose it's got to be a bit PC and say that the banks now are not trying to be what they call in terms of responsible lenders, but however responsible they are, I've now discovered that the system is not actually set up for Joe Public. So they're not in business to do me a favor, they're in business to do themselves a favor. So however they present it, it's actually about trying to get the money out of my pocket into their pocket. So I've got to look after myself first and not just be easily sold by what they're trying to say to me. Because back in those days, I've made all those mistakes, used credit cards, got into a bit of debt, and some of the ways I had to deal with that is actually cut up the credit cards. Love to would have had that to spend, but it's like if it gets out of control, I just cut the credit cards up, put it out of the way, and got myself on the regime. I know we live in a society where people got to try and keep up with the Joneses. Do you know who are these Joneses? Don't know who they are, mate. But we got whoever they are, we're trying to keep up with them. So you get pressure in terms of how you've got to look, what you've got to drive, and what you've got to wear. And credit is all too easily out there, and we often sort of take today and pay it off tomorrow. And sometimes I'm sort of using in today what I needed for my tomorrow. So I've had instances, mate, where I've made the mistakes, which would have been through credit cards. Some of it, I'm sure we're going to get onto, in terms of bad financial decisions on investments, and then it's left us out of pocket.
Yeah.
And the way I've had to come out of that, apart from seeking advice, and when we're married, sitting down, talking through my wife, and getting ourselves a budget. Back in my younger days, as a single guy, I just had to cut up my credit cards and throw them away, and just live on a cash basis and not a credit basis.
How did that affect your mindset though? Like when you got to that point where, there's X amount of credit being stacked up to, let's call it what it is. It was debt. Like, how did that affect your mind? Like, what was that feel like for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great comment, but, and things like mental health issues are becoming more prevalent or more understood now. Back then, I wouldn't have thought it was particularly a mental health issue because we didn't understand it properly. And you think that mental health, it just gives you the wrong connotation mindset. But my understanding now is just about i.e. the state of our minds and how healthy or otherwise it is. Back then, how did it affect me? Gosh, mate, the pressure and the stress that can bring. And then not just that, but also it silences you a bit there, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's good.
You might be in a situation, some people, and they're talking because whether we like it or not, as men and as society, we're often judged by how much we earn and what job we do and what cars we drive. So if you haven't got it, then it affects you in your manhood and how you're coming across to people. So you find yourself losing a bit of self-confidence, and it silences your voice when you're around people. So we've known those kind of things, friend.
That is such a good point that you've made, and like it is tricky as a bloke, like to obviously treat yourself and have these nice things, but then battle against the struggle of comparison to others, as you say, where you're like, oh yeah, I've got nice whip, nice car, nice shoes, and like, oh yeah, and then you see your social circle, like a few of them doing really well, and then just naturally, it's not unnecessary envy or an evil thought. You just look at them and you go, yeah, I'd love to better myself and have what they've got. And you can. It's almost a little bit of a trap because you can get caught in materialism a lot, can't you? And without even realizing it. And then I guess that's when, through that ambition, with the instant generation we're in, we go, right, well, bang, I'll get that. And you're in like a bubble payment where you're paying for things like on a contract, say like a car lease, and you go, yeah, this is my car. Like, and then, you know, you have to buy the car outright at the end of the lease for thousands of pounds, which you haven't got. So they hook you in to go, oh, hand this in and have a new car. And so they're obviously, as you say, well, like the banks, with all due respect, they're a business. They're out to make money. And I don't know, we play into their hands a bit. I don't know. Could you just give us some advice about, I know I didn't maybe prepare you for this, but I just feel like organically, what can we do to resist? Like, what can we do to really just help our mindset when we see things around us and we go, oh yeah, I want that, or oh yeah, my mate's doing well. What can we do?
Get honest with ourselves, mate. We can live in that area of pretense, and if you live there, and if we live there, all we're going to do is just hurt our own selves. So let's just fess up. If I've not got it, I'll say I've not got it. If my friends got it, I'll bless them and say, good on you. And maybe just ask how they got that. And if they've got it in a way that didn't get them into debt, then let's just humble ourselves and just get some advice, get some information, see what they've done, see if we can do that ourselves as well. That's, as I get a little bit older these days, the need to impress, the need to do and to get is less and less. But I mean, so because we've all suffered from that. If anything, these days, my family think I don't buy enough, and I've got a wife who goes and buys me the clothes, and my daughter, and gosh, she's getting to buy clothes as well. It's like, guys, you know, I've got clothes.
Trying to freshen you up, make you look good, aren't they? You're like, no, I'm cool. I've learned my lessons. I don't need this.
Yeah. Oh, right. It is such a pressure for society and then men as well. But we just don't need to. I think if we have a real dose of honesty with our own selves,
yeah,
a real dose of honesty if we're married, with our partners and with our friends. Do you know what I found is that the troubles that I'm going through, which is partly where your program comes into it, mate, because we're never alone in the situations that we find ourselves. And when you get into that kind of scenario, you think it's just you. So you go into yourself, you think there's nobody you can talk to about it. But if we can overcome that bit, talking and coming clean and being honest is the pathway to actually starting to try and get some help and trying to start ourselves out of whatever situation that we find ourselves in. And they say to us that there's three things that you don't talk about: religion, politics, and money. But the exact things that we need to talk about.
100%. They make the world go round. They keep us a society, and it's about before, during, and after death, and a means to live. So like all three are just crucial, but we're so scared of like having dialogue because it's like, oh, I don't want to offend them, or oh, they've offended me, or oh, it's too intense. It's like, no, let's just be respectful. Let's be grown up and mature. Let's get real. Just talk about these things. So yeah, that's why, as you say, Enlighten the Shadows exists because it's in the name. You know, these things are in the shadows. Like us blokes, we stay in the shadows. We wear the mask. We hold all these things and think, oh no, I can't. I'm not letting no one know about this. And it's just like, oh no, please don't. That's like the exact damaging effect it will have on you. So I love what you said, Remi. You said, you know, just we've got to fess up and be honest, and you know, even if that's open up to a really, really close confidant, you know, if you're in a relationship, it needs to be them, even though it feels like they're the last person you want to be like telling or whatever. So yeah, it's yeah, I just feel like in this day and age where things may or may not get pretty tough and hard for people, I just feel we've just, as I say, I agree, we've got to be honest and we've got to be transparent. Definitely.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Which is, I mean, I think I said before we even sort of came on a broadcast, happy to sit down and talk about this, but there's an element also that was a bit of a trepidation, but because of that, we thought we've got to go there because it requires transparency and it benefits me. I hope it benefits other people, but it certainly benefits me. So
definitely.
I'm all up for it, mate.
So we're in this tough time and there's going to be cuts. And something I noticed, I'll be real. So I've started my new job this week and I've been buzzing. I've been loving it. Anyway, that's a separate side issue. But the point I'm making, why I bring it up, is me and my wife, we have saved so much money supernaturally. Like we've gone without, but yet we've managed to save money at the same time. It doesn't make sense, but it made sense today. I had the revelation, Remi. It came to me. It's so simple, and this goes out to all the people watching right now. This is how it happens. It's so sneaky. So my training is in the city centre of all places. So it gets to the time where you've had your work, and so it's work hard, play hard. So I find myself, I'll have a cheeky Greg's. Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Oh yeah, I'll go to Starbucks. Yeah. And it all starts, honestly, I've not had this conversation with her, but she'll know this is what has happened. But the point is, I'm aware of it now. But why I bring it up is it's so tricky to try and save money and budget. But when those things were taken away from us with COVID, it was like, well, it's just naturally happened because the gates are closed. But now, like, things are starting to open. It's tricky because you're like, it's there. So like today, I was like, some of my colleagues and fellows I'm getting really well on with, and we're bonding like a brotherhood already. It's crazy, but they're like, every time we're like on a break, lunch break, Rory, we're going to go out. And I was like, today I was like, no, fellas, I'm not going out. I was like, because I'll end up spending something on food or drink. And I said, yesterday got packed lunch with my missus for today, and I'm saving money. And we were laughing. We were discussing this, Remi. We were saying, it's mad. In the lockdown, it wasn't there, so you're just saving it. Now we're like, yeah. We're talking about Mackey's breakfast, Weatherspoon's breakfast, all these different options that you've got, and we're like, oh no, what we're doing. So yeah. Anyway, I'm waffling, but I make the point to say to people, and this is an encouragement and maybe a little bit of a challenge as well. I want to say to your viewers, just really try and have some self-control, because it's so easy to just go, yeah, I'll get it. And on that note, Remi, this is what I wanted to kind of venture down as well, is saving and budgeting and how to save effectively. So is there any tips or experience you've got about how to budget effectively? Like practically, what might that look like for people who are watching?
Yeah, I mean, as a younger man, I'm big on budgeting. So much so that as I was getting married, it was like we just budgeted everything down to a penny. Because when you get married, you don't have much. Well, I'm sorry, mate. That's how it was.
Promoting it well there.
We didn't have much back then. So it was just a case of, this is how much income I've got coming in. This is all my expenses. And we did that on a weekly basis. And then however much was left, or even within the budget, we'd also put aside an amount for savings as well. And then anything that was left was then disposable income. I suppose maybe when I was a bit younger, I was a bit quite ruthless around it, and but you learn. But that's how I started off. I knew enough then that we had to live by a budget and had to just do my expenses, and then put what was priorities, and before what is pleasure, and before what is just wow, for the other bits. Yeah,
like that. Priority before the pleasure.
Absolutely, mate.
It's a perler. Love it.
I was also taught about 3 S's in terms of you spend some and you save some, and then sort of at least there's 2 S's there. So you get your money, save some and spend some, and that's how we operated as well, mate. But I mean, I think probably did fall into the category where they talk about most people live about 110% above their income. So we're always 10% above what we're earning. So I had to turn that around because typically they'll say try to save between 10 and 30% of your income, which is quite a big deal in some instances. So we try to do that and always manage that. But it began for me by budgeting in the first instance and trying to put some money. When I was a really young boy, my parents sort of started me off with a post office savings account. So we'd go down to the post office, we'd put our money in, and just seeing that total on a weekly basis. When you went into the post office, you put them the money, they gave you your book, and then they totted it. That was quite inspiring for me back then.
Yeah.
So and that just helped me to save on a regular basis. So I began to develop some disciplines in that regard.
Got you.
Older, I'd save money in some banks and try and take out some savings policies. But the bedrock for me is the actual budgeting that I was able to do and we were doing back then.
Got you. Yeah, I remember as a little kid, my mum would take me to Halifax, the little the book for savings account and all that. So yeah, it's good memories that. But it didn't, they did a great job with helping with that, but it just was a distant memory. And I think my generation is, growing up in the 90s, teenager into the noughties, and then I'm 30 now, as you may or may not know, and then everything's just so instant, and it's like you can just get it quickly. And I feel like as well, back to the budgeting thing, which we want to park at, I'm going to put on the screen now for the viewers. There's like some apps, and I'm preaching a rooftop, and I've used it, and it's solid. I'll put that on the screen for you right now. It's a budgeting app, because where do we usually go to? It's our phones, isn't it, Remi? We always go to our phones. We're on our phones, and so good old pen and paper is good to go, as you said, Remi. You said, right, here's our total income, here's expenditures like bills, and then right, here's my residual income, here's what I'm left over with, what do I do with that sort of thing. But yeah, there's an app that I know, and there's multiple of them, but I just want to give you guys some tools and resources, because it's so important, because we're on our phones a lot, and it's very unlikely, isn't it, Remi? They're going to be like, yeah, let me just draw this out. So there's no excuses, guys. You can budget through the app that I'm going to put on. There's multiple of them, but yeah. So I want to ask you as well, this is entirely about the budgeting. Is say I've got 100 quid. You said go for 10 to 30% of your income, try and save it. Say I don't know, we've got 10%, and it's 100 quid after everything.
Yep.
And I can spend it on what I want, but also I could budget and save it. What can you tell our viewers about that 100 quid? What can they do with it, and to help them to either maybe invest it or put it in a savings account? What would you do? Say you're one of our viewers, and you've got 100 quid, give or take a month, and you might want to, they might want to gamble on it. They might want to do loads of lottery tickets. They might want to just spend it generally. Let's just try and move away from the spend, and let's just move to the saving and the budget or the investing. Is there anything you could advise, disciplines, practical techniques, to be right, no, I know you're feeling that, but let's talk about this.
Sure.
Inspire them.
I mean, first of all, let everybody know that, because there's 3 S's come back to me. One was spend some, save some, and sow some. But I mean, I would say that in terms of from a Christian perspective. But back to your £100, because some of it you got to just use for your living. And what I always did, even with debts, is you got to make sure that you pay yourself first, which is one of the advice that I had years ago. So, because listen, those who you need to pay, they'll always be there. But if I don't look after myself, I won't be there tomorrow in order to go to earn some more to pay them. But it doesn't mean that I take license and eat all that for myself. But I think just in terms of our own mental sanity,
That's
because
good.
even with the pressures and they're knocking on your door, there's very few bills which are, let's say, statutory ones, like your poll tax. If you don't pay that, so that's statutory. But all the others, like your utility and your banks, they're going to be there tomorrow. And all of them are always after that £100 that you've got. And they say you owe us £80 of that. But I need to make sure that I feed myself first. So I pay myself first, and then I begin to pay them out of what is left out of that. And then after paying myself, I would look to save some as well, because if I don't save any, and then I use all of that to pay back what I do owe, then I'm not actually building for my tomorrow. So I know it might sound a little bit contrary, and people think, well, gosh, I've got to just get rid of all that debt because I've got to get it out of my head. But you get rid of all that debt, you've got no savings if you're not paid yourself. So pay yourself first, and then put some in savings. And specifically, what do I do, or what can we do? you can just, on a regular basis, depending on how disciplined or otherwise I am, or I may not be, you might just set up a standing order, regular standing order that
Yeah.
sets aside 20, £30. So we talk about that 10 or 30% of that, whatever income. So if it's 10%, it's £10 of your 100. If it's 30%, then it's £30. So, and then we've got that set up a regular standing order. So it goes out every month. Because if it comes to me, and I think, well, after I've done what I need to do, then I'll save, I might not get to it. So it's got to go out straight away, so it doesn't even come to me and I don't even see it, and it begins to build up.
That's such good advice, because let's be honest, fellas, if you're watching, and ladies as well, if you got that money on the side, if you don't take this option that Remi's given you about the standing order, you're going to spend it. I know that you're going to spend it. So great advice, Remi. Get on do you know what? I'm challenging you viewers right now. I challenge you in love. Pause this video right now. Pause it, please. But before you do, let me tell you what to do. Pause it. Go on your banking app and look at your finances properly, and be really, really honest with yourself, and make yourself a small fee, whether it's 20 quid, 30 quid, something around there, quite small, and set it up as a standing order to a savings account. And if you go, oh, I haven't got one, okay, that's cool. Set one up. Go to the bank, arrange it online, get a savings account set up, and I'll challenge you to pause and take action right now. Because as I have an acronym, Remi, when I like in the shadows, it's ACT, act. So A is acknowledge. Right now, we need to acknowledge we're talking real. We're talking about money. I can't see your bank balance. I can't see Remi's. He can't see mine. We're not going that transparent, but we're going to the point where, right, I want to better myself. It's tough times. We have to acknowledge that. We have to be honest. And as Remi said, we've got to be frank, honest with ourselves. C is comprehend. To comprehend is not to know it all. It's to grasp it and to think about it a bit so you can understand it better. And then it leads to the T, which is to take action. And that's what I'm calling people to do right now. Take some action. This is not for me or to promote my YouTube channel or to give Remi profit for his financial advising. This is for you, and this is why we're doing it. This is why we're spending our free time to talk, to give you advice. Get on that banking app, set yourself a standing order, and do it, because it'll be the best thing you could do for yourself.
Very good,
right,
mate.
Preach over. So on that note about investment, can I just ask quickly your advice about some good savings accounts and stuff? Can you just give us some basics, like for people who don't know maybe what APR is, and because it's easy to just like see what looks attractive and go, oh yeah, I'll do that. Is there anything you could quickly run through with us practically about savings accounts and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whilst we talk about savings, and it's good to save, we also have to recognize in the current climate that we live in that there's very little interest that's paid on our savings these days. Years ago, you used to put money in savings accounts, get yourself a good interest, and you'll see it compound. And that's an interesting word that we'll come to maybe about compounding. And that's things building upon one another. And after a period of time, the power of compounding is phenomenal. So though we talk about savings and do that, you can also maybe consider, if we're talking at a basic level, a type of savings where you're also able to invest, maybe in shares. And you've got those in the banks, and you can start some of these savings accounts. You can start from as little as £1. And if you're doing it on a regular basis and you're paying them money, what it does is that it actually goes into a type of account where they also buy some shares and spread the shares. And you can choose according to your risk level, whether you're low risk, medium risk, or high risk. So what's happening there is that your money is actually now beginning to work for you. Because in savings, you just put the money aside and it begins to pile up, but it's not actually compounding much because there's not much interest going on it. But if you put it into a type of savings, which is sort of share and saving accounts, they'll actually be able to purchase, you can purchase some shares, whether through yourself or a managed account. And then that way you're both saving and you're investing. So you're beginning to get on the ladder of investing. And yeah, investments can go up or can go down, but typically in shares over a period of time, things will increase. and your money actually will do much better than just putting in an ordinary savings account. And that one we do as well as a family.
Amazing. So where could we go to? Like, can you signpost us where we'd go to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Funny enough, you can talk to some financial advisors, but
Yeah.
or clearly you can also get some stuff on the internet. You can go to Citizens Advice Bureau, or you can talk to your bank. They should be able to give you some ideas in terms of what they themselves offer. And most banks these days, simply because money is such a competitive area, they've got the kind of advice that you should be able to access. So any of those areas, a financial advisor might not always be applicable for most people.
Yeah.
Self-research on the internet, you can go to Citizens Advice, or you can just go to your bank and say to them, listen, can you talk to me about savings and how can I begin investing? And they should be able to give an appointment and just sit you down and go through it, and can do what they call a fact find. So for people who've never maybe done that kind of thing before, sit down with a professional and they'll just go through a fact find, what your income is, what your expenses are, what your priorities are, how much you've got to be able to put aside for savings and shares or investing. And so they can tailor it to where you are at. So we're not actually having to put in more than we are. And the thing is, it's always better to start even with a little compounded after a bit of time is better than nothing. If we're talking about act, the idea is to act now and to begin now. Because listen, when you get to, because of this compounding thing, by the time that you get to, if you think I'll put it off till tomorrow, well, when you get to tomorrow, you've got fewer years in front of you and you've not saved as much. But when you begin, and by compounding, the amount of money that you can save over a period of time is quite phenomenal.
Great. So that's the difference, isn't it? So it's not just saving, it's compounding. So I want to ask you this. I don't know if you know or not, but so I've done my own little research over the lockdown because I was like, right, I sense I'll be honest, I'm a little bit more of a conspiracy theorist than most people. Not because I like to make up fantasies. I just try and see the world I back away, I analyze things a lot. And so I just look at things. And I personally feel that the way the world is going with cryptocurrencies and maybe trying to crash the current currencies of the pound and that, I don't know, have you got any advice with like premium bonds and cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, or even investing in silver and gold, all those kind of things? I know I've just thrown them into like a hand grenade and just gone, okay, what are you saying? But have you got any like wisdom or even just your opinion on those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it all depends on people's risks. I mean, when you talk about conspiracy theory, I'm not sure what your theories are, but you're probably not that far off, mate, because the system is not set up for you and I to prosper. The rich want to get richer.
Yeah.
The poor are the ones who often end up having to pick up the tab. So the systems are already set in place to benefit those who have. So where do the likes of Joe Public and you and I can start? We've got to start with some of the safer areas like premium bonds, which are from the government, and the government pay a bit of better interest there. So we're really trying to talk about strategies that we can at least accumulate an amount of money, which now becomes at least a portion that can get you in the game and get you a bit higher up. Because when you talk about silver, well, even to buy silver, mate, you've got to have a chunk of money to be able to buy your silver and to buy your gold. Because for those kind of things, you're buying bits and pieces like a cryptocurrency. So you need quite a store of money. But better to start with what you've got at the moment, grow it, than to be able to get in the real game and to start talking. Here's another option, mate. Depending on how honest you want to be, how vulnerable and transparent, get with a couple of people and start pulling your money together. And that way it begins to build. You don't have to do all this by yourself. I've been part of groups of people where we've pulled our money together and then we use that to buy things together. That just makes the cost of entry into a scheme or into, if you're buying property or anything like that, makes the cost of entry far easier. If you have to put in £100, £500 between, or if it, let's say it costs £5,000 to put down a deposit for a house, then 10 people, that's £500 each. That's a bit easier, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But sign a contract, even if they're like your closest of loved ones and friends. Sign a contract, because you just never know.
It goes without saying.
Yeah. Well, some people will be like, "Oh yeah, but he's my brother, he's my mate. It'll be all right." It's like, oh, no.
It's
Yeah.
amazing what money does for you.
Yeah.
Whether you're rich or poor, the issue is still the same. The rich want more money and the poor want more money, so money's on people's minds. So it can do things to our minds. So you've got to have it in contract, because with the best will in the world, when you get a bit richer, it can really test your mettle. So you've got to have a contract and sign stuff and make sure everybody's all agreed to it.
That's amazing. But yeah, I've got a really good friend. I'd call him a good friend now, and he watches these, and he actually was one of the few people that said, "You need to sort it out, man. You need to get your own YouTube channel." And I'm gonna give a few shout outs. I said I was gonna give a few shout outs, and I'm not into that because it's a bit like, oh, chill out, Rory. You've not got many viewers, but shout out to Chris Watkinson and to Lee Brack. You fellas are you're like the guys on a show, like a play or a theatre, who are behind the curtains, off to the side, no one can see, who are just directing and encouraging and championing. So I want to say, fellas, thank you for all your encouragements to getting Light in the Shadows up and running. You didn't actually help me practically, but you helped me mentally to believe in myself to do it. And these fellas have got me into and this is for our viewers to listen now, this is real talk. They've opened my mind into like cryptocurrency, gold and silver investment. And I won't say which one, but one of them he's got the most beautiful heart. He even gave me, for free, of his own accord, gave me a wad of money to put into a Bitcoin. And I was like, whoa, you can't do this. And he was like, I want to, like, you're going to need it, sort of thing. Not scaring me, but yeah, so there's that investment. But those two fellas are amazing. And there's a guy I want to mention as well. I don't know if you've heard of him, Remi. He's called Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah. He's a Japanese American. Yeah. He's a really intellectual guy with finances and investment. So I want to encourage people. I'm going to put his book on the screen right now. Give his book a read, because I think he has some interesting views that might want to help you. What we're recommending today, we're not saying it's gospel. This is maybe like a little small print. Whatever Remi and I have said, don't take it as 100% gospel, and that everything we tell you to do is as it is. And if you do it, and if it doesn't quite work out for whatever reason, we're not responsible. We love you guys. We're supporting you. We're giving you loads of different avenues, but we want to let you know, like, look, life swings and roundabouts. Things like COVID come out of nowhere. There's so many variables to finances that we can't predict. So yeah, we just want to give you some strategies to have a venture to think about. Make sure you don't rush in, is what I'm saying. Yeah. Anyways, this is not me. You're my guest.
Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, great book. And for the viewers, just in case they particularly wanted another one to inspire them, Think and Grow Rich is another fantastic book. And that just really changes your mindset in terms of what money is about. So those two books would be quite highly recommended. I mean, for now, talking strategies, what can we do? How can we grow our money and wealth? That's a great thought. There's one thing I want to just put by way of what helped me to get some money and pay off some debts. Not sure if people thought about this before, but when you and then we'll talk about sort of strategies in terms of, because that's the first strategy, because you've got to, maybe if you're in debt, clear your debts first. And then as well as investing. So in terms of clearing debt, supposing you've got a couple of credit cards and you're paying maybe £100 on one, £200 another, and £200 another, then just tackle the smallest debt first and get that cleared off. And then once that's cleared off, then take that £100 that you're paying into that first credit card add it onto your second credit card. So where you were paying 200, it now becomes £300. So that one you're now paying £300 per month. And when that gets paid off, take that £300 instead of thinking, wow, I've got £300 now. Look what I can do with it. Take that £300, add it to the third credit card where you were paying 200 before, and that now becomes £500 per month. And so that way you accelerate your paying off your debts, and then you're cleared. And then when you've cleared £500 per month, that you can now start putting into savings or start putting in investments. And £500 over 12 months, that's £6,000 already, and that's £6,000 more than I had before. And then your £6,000 that can buy you your bitcoins, can buy you your cryptocurrencies that Rory is into in this day and age.
Well, they started using them in Australia on vending machines already. So I don't know. I've been checking it. It's like, it's going like this, like give or take 10, 15 quid. I'm like, oh, come on. What's going on? But anyway, I'm not putting all my chips into it. I'm just, something on the side just to have an eye on.
And as a strategy, we can't. They tell us never put all your eggs in one basket. You've got to have a portfolio, some with low risk, some with medium risk, some with high risk. And when we're investing, number one rule is never put in more than you can't afford to lose. So if I go and bet all my house on it and it doesn't come up, then listen, I'm homeless and I've got a wife and children to feed. So we enter in with what we can afford to lose. I never knew that at the very beginning. And the kind of funds that we were dealing with, gosh, then you lose a lot there.
Yeah.
But you start off with what you can afford to lose. If you can't afford to lose it, don't invest it.
That is such good advice. And I want to tell our viewers, please take that in right now, because that's the epitome of my generation younger is we don't remember that underlying foundational truth of, right, don't put in what you can't afford here. My wife's amazing at that. She's very good. I'm a bit harsh to her sometimes. She's a bit stingy in money, but it's because it's one of her strengths. Because
very good.
She's like, no, we're not paying that, or no, we can't actually afford that. Yeah, she's a good balance for me. I'm Mr. Generous. She's generous, but I'm Mr. Generous too much at times, or spend and go, yeah. Don't see the foresight. Like she does, she sees it down the line. And I'm saying to the viewers, just try and just press pause and see the future a little bit, and take Remi's advice. So yeah, thank you, Remi. That's great advice. Love it.
There's one more thought I wanted to maybe just speak to a viewer out there who might have a credit card debt, because you read about these things when they say the average credit card debt in the UK is about 15,000, and you might have the credit card company on you. Do this, which I've done in the past. Make them an offer. Make them an offer to clear all your debt. So supposing you owe £5,000 or £6,000 and they're banging on your door, ring them up and say, listen, can't afford to pay all that, but I can afford to pay this. Can I pay that and full and final settlement of all our debt? Because in reality, them getting something off you is better than them getting nothing off you.
So, see, I wish I had that advice. Where were you? Oh, brilliant.
They will. Some of them will take that. Depends what the situation is. It's typically when it's gone to a level of default, and do remember they'll mark it on your file. But listen, whether they mark it on your file or not, if you couldn't afford to pay it, they would have marked your file anyway. And that's another. They use that as a threat over people. So, oh, your credit's going to be affected, etc., etc. And they use it as a threat over people. But make them an offer. Typically, make them 2/3 of the offer, or 50%, from 50% to 2/3, and start with that as your opening offer. If they accept that, then you've cancelled 50% of your debt, and you settle the rest, and you can move on.
Wonderful, absolute nuggets. Love it. Oh, we're filling them, aren't we? We're filling them with food. This is great. I feel really encouraged. Anyway, so hooking back to mental health and the mindfulness. I read a tragic story that happened in the last. Oh my gosh, yeah. The article was 21st of July 2019. Yeah, it's just, I want to share this with people. I'm going to put it up on the screen, but basically it's a fella who was 34, and his name's Philip Heron, and he had it's heartbreaking, but I'm sharing this because this is the reality for people, and if we don't take this advice on board that you've given us, Remi, and we're not saying you are the guru and all that, but this is your expertise, your professional background. You've shared, your experiences, whether they've been positive or negative. But I want to share this story because it broke me. Just like in episode 7 with Dr. Theoro, I talked about an SAS medic who saved hundreds of people's lives, and yet he killed himself because he wasn't listened to. And I put that on the screen. So check out Dr. Theoro, episode 7, guys. Talking about male suicide. If you guys feel that you're struggling and you feel utterly hopeless and helpless, tune in as quick as you can after this episode, or even now, pause this and get straight to episode 7. I spoke to a clinical psychologist, and she's a suicide interventionist licensed. She's amazing, and she gave us good advice. But the point I'm making is that we are losing men. They're killing themselves because they feel like that's the only option left. And Philip Heron, he was struggling to feed and clothe his 3 kids, and he had debts of up to 20 grand, and he had payday loans of 1,000% interest. It's just like, oh gosh. And he had under £5 left in his bank account.
Wow.
So he ended it all. He killed himself, and it's just heartbreaking. And so, this is why Enlighten the Shadows is this, and this is why I brought you on, Remi. I'm so honoured and privileged, and we're going to start to land and close this in a minute, but I wanted to ask you like an Enlighten the Shadows question. I usually ask my guests it, and it's just getting to the meat and really getting raw, just getting to the spearhead point of why we're here on this episode 8, and I wanted to ask you this: what is your best piece of advice to a bloke who just feels utterly hopeless, excuse me, who's in like really bad debt? Where can they turn?
Yeah. Great point, mate. Great point. Because the worst thing about it is, as you said, in terms of the male suicide, not listened to. We've got to turn to somebody. Well, first of all, I think before we even get to financial advice, I know it's a financial matter and people are in debt, and where do they turn? Find somebody to talk to in the first instance. Even if it's not about the finances itself in the first place, we've got to talk. We've got to come out of the shadows and say, I've got a problem here. If we can find somebody to talk to, the amount of pressure that begins to take off us, and somebody's not going to judge us, particularly in the area of money, with all the taboo and all the shutdown that we have about money. That would be my first step. And if we haven't got that in our lives, that should really challenge us as to the quality of friends and life that we are actually dealing with. We've got to make sure we've got somebody that we can be honest with. If you're married, could be your wife or husband, but we've got to make sure that we've got to have somebody in our lives whom we can be real with, even if they're not the person in that expert area. So that's the first thing. Then you begin to gain courage. And then the next bit is to seek financial advice. And one of the best places to go to in this country is a citizen's advice, because they'll be able to tell you what your rights are. If you go to the bank, whilst the bank might tell you some things that are business and they're going to be biased. So go to the citizen's advice, and they'll actually let you know what are statutory debts from what are just utilities and what are banks, because some of them, in terms of priorities, can go right down the bottom of the queue, and they'll be able to then help you to draft up a budget according to what you can afford to pay. And then, of course, there are people like Christians Against Poverty, loads of other places like that, and we know a couple of them who themselves will come in, and these are often volunteer organizations or who are paid for by other people, come with a listening ear, and they'll do exactly the same thing for you. And what we're talking about there is that they make sure that you've got enough to live on first, and then what have we got to pay our debts. even if it's £1 that you're contributing to, that's fine. But we've got to look after ourselves first. That would be my advice, mate. 3 levels.
Wonderful. That's so great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And, you know, Christians Against Poverty CAP, just to give someone real life facts, I know a gentleman who I used to go to church with, one of my old churches, and we had a great relationship. And I just don't get to see him that much anymore. That's just how it is. But yeah, he had, I feel like it was £50,000 of debt. And within 2.5 years, 2.5 years, it got completely paid up and gone. So, you know, as Remi has been talking, I've put these things on the screen for you. Pause it and just go for this advice, guys. You know, you're not alone. I've been in debt. Remi's, you know, been in debt. It's not as lonely as we think. We don't, you know, sometimes with suffering, and it's important when I say within Light in the Shadows, we're all about getting on people's level and having an empathetic approach and having lots of compassion. But at the same time, we don't want to victimize people where they're just put in the shadows and left there. We've got to get back up, fellas. We've got to seek these things, and it requires personal responsibility. So yeah, thank you so much, Remi, for that amazing advice. And thanks for spending this hour. I believe it's an hour that we've had together. It's just been full of so much knowledge, and yeah, I'm just very grateful. And I pray that the people watching it would get something out of it, and really believing that they'll be signposted to restoration, where maybe we'll hear some stories. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, thank you.
To the stories. Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to the stories. I think just from my perspective, flows, I mean, apart from, in my view, financial slavery is one of the biggest issues in life.
Yeah. So let's get free. Come on.
Come on, let's get free.
We're giving you some keys to take those shackles off tonight. So come on, let's have it. So yeah, thank you so much. So guys, really, really grateful for you watching these videos. Really grateful for your support. Coming up on the screen right now is the YouTube channel. I want you to just, as soon as you get off this, get on YouTube, get yourself an account. It doesn't take more than a minute, and click on that red button that I'm putting up right now for subscribe. That would mean the world to me, so that I know that it's getting more clout and it's pushing more across. Also, we have ourselves on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle also is coming up right now on the screen, and it's at Enlighten the SH1. So just get on that, please. Follow us, you know, share our stuff. And then also just on Facebook, I'm gonna give you some cool updates. Like, I'm gonna talk with Paolo Piliero, a guy we had who's raising money. I want to get him back on as another special episode next week. But we got some cool stuff popping off in Light in the Shadows. You know, we've had over 800 viewers come through my email of YouTube right now for the videos. I've been in chat with a charity called Nicodemus. I've had a conference call this week where they're going to look to get me a grant. And I'm saying this to say I'm serious about this thing, and I'm pushing hard to expand and reach more people. And also Facebook, I want it in the near future, guys, to set up on Facebook where it's a closed, safe environment group where people can get themselves on there, and it's a platform for us to just get down, dirty and real and share our darkest things, so we can just communicate and encourage and inspire one another. Just like Remi today gave some sound advice and made it to free up from that slavery he mentioned financially. So yeah, big things coming up within Light the Shadow. So guys, thank you so much. Remi, it's been amazing. Thank you for coming on today.
Right, thank you very much, mate. Really been a pleasure spending some time with you.
Yeah.
And sharing some deep financial secrets and sins. But
come on,
we're free. We're free.
Come on, we are free. Thank you, brother. Brilliant. Guys, tune in next week. As I said, Paolo Piliero is going to be just having a relaxed, real life, kind of like a Joe Rogan style, just chilled chat where we're just going to open up, talk real about our lives the last few weeks. But tune into that next Sunday, as usual, 7:30 at night, GMT time. Thank you so much. God bless. Bye-bye.